Hello, it's Amy, and I'm here once again reading from the Journal of Emily Shore, the diary of a teenage girl in the 1830s, published in 1891. And we have surpassed the halfway point of Emily's journal. And unfortunately, we are getting very close to the end of her life. She died very young at the age of 20 from the illness that she's begun to describe in some of her recent entries. Now we are on page 221. The year is 1837, and we are beginning with the entry for October the 7th, which was a Saturday. It is no small delight to me to possess the works of Massinger and Ford. They are amongst the most celebrated of our admirable old English dramatists. Massinger is often considered inferior to none but Shakespeare. They are very little read in modern times, and I shall have great pleasure in exploring their unknown or forgotten beauties. October 12th, Thursday. I rode on my pony, accompanied only by Papa. We explored some lovely glades on the right of Lyndhurst Road, between the road to Misted and our common. There was nothing to be seen that had life but the wild deer on an occasional jay, and no sound to be heard but the cries of blue tits and the whisper of the golden-crested wren. Sometimes on the little open common we fall in with peasants loading a wagon with fern, or a girl carrying a bundle of faggots on her head and driving home a few cows to be milked, the tinkling of the cowbell sounding through the arches of the trees. October 15th, Sunday. The first fine Sunday since we have been at Bartley Lodge, but I, of course, could not go to church. Being unable to walk, I sat out of doors for an hour or two in the afternoon in a little sheltered spot in front of the house before the eastern wing, which recedes a few feet back. It is a very small piece of grass between rhododendrons on one side and laurusterianus on the other, and she's using some technical terms for the particular flowers here, with the wall of the house covered with jessamines behind. In front is the park and forest, so that altogether it is a sweet little spot, and I enjoyed sitting here very much. It was a calm, delicious day, the forest bathed in sunlight, the sky a pure pale blue. On my left, close to the wall of the house, is an oak grey with lichens. Here I watched the merry ox-eyes flitting from twig to twig and tapping them with the heads downward, and the handsome nuthatch with his loud, clear whistle running up the boughs like a mouse and hammering at them with the concentrated force of his powerful body. In the herbage of the park, I heard the mingled, tinkling warble of a dozen goldfinches. The sweet song of the robin sounded from tree to tree. From the forest arose a few melodious notes of the thrush, and the loud laugh of the green woodpecker. A pied wagtail with his cheerful chippet alighted on the roof of the house above me. A lark flew across the park, uttering his pretty plaintive cry. In the garden, the scream of the jay and the chattering of jackdaws completed the gay, though not always melodious concert. October 25th, Wednesday. It is a great satisfaction to me to find myself daily making a very visible progress in my present studies. I have just finished the first volumes of the Venetian and American studies, abridging each as I go on. With neither of these histories have I been previously acquainted, so that the reading of both adds greatly to my stock of knowledge. I am particularly pleased at the insight the former gives into the different and complex annals of the great families and principalities of northern Italy, such as the Carrera of Padua, the Della Scala of Verona, and the Visconti of Milan, of whom I had before knew little but by name. Really, there is hardly any pleasure equal to that of acquiring knowledge, and yet, at the same time, every step we make in the path of learning opens to us so vast a number of endless vistas and newer tracks, just as in our forest rambles, that it quite discourages me. It is hopeless to think of exhausting all stores of knowledge. In chronology, too, I am making great progress. I really think my memory is improving, which at my age is more than I could expect. October 26, Thursday. I took up Shakespeare this evening and read parts of Hamlet. This is my favorite play. I do admire it most thoroughly. The whole interest indeed is swallowed up in Hamlet, but how deep, how absorbing is that interest? His profound melancholy, the struggles and interesting passions in his noble mind, his painful sense of his own want of resolution, unite in forming one of the grandest conceptions and creations of even Shakespeare's mighty genius. There is no character in any of his plays, at least those which I have read and I know all the best except Othello, which displays such a splendid depth of talent. Nor am I acquainted with anything in the range of drama so intensely pathetic as the character of Hamlet. November 2nd. Winthrop and Mrs. Praed came today, as we had hoped, and we enjoyed their visit very much. Poor Winthrop looks exceedingly delicate. He is so pale and thin, and he seems as if a breath would blow him away. He was, as usual, very agreeable, and I like his wife as much as ever. November 6, Monday. From dinner to tea, I was busily occupied in studying those part of Knightley's Outlines of History, Lardner's Cyclopedia, of Russell's Modern Europe, and Muller's Universal History, which relate to the times of, and he lists off she lists off a whole bunch of kings and popes here. So maybe I'll skip reading aloud that list because I know I'm about to stumble and second guess myself over the Roman numerals. But we've got such names here as Francis I, Alexander the Sixth, Leo X, Maximilian I, Charles V of Germany. And she says, which I have reached in the Venetian history, being of the opinion that to read the history of the same period in different books is an excellent way of impressing it on one's memory. November 7th, Tuesday. I have finished learning from my 4 charts of general history down to the present time. They are complete in themselves and begin with ancient history. The first chart contains the histories of the Jews, Greece, Rome, Egypt, and Syria, in comparative columns to the Christian era. The second, the Roman emperors, those of the East and West, Persia and the Caliphs, and miscellaneous history. The third, Italy, the emperors of the East, succeeded where they end by Greece. Persia, the Caliph, succeeded by Poland, miscellaneous history, and the Ottomans. The number of dates out of all these, which I have learnt by heart, amounts to 365, and I dare say that I shall add to it continually, besides beginning another set of charts. So it sounds like she was well on her way to perhaps writing a comprehensive history book here, if she had so chosen. November 8th, Wednesday. Finding myself stronger, I am resolved to begin again the study of languages. I rather think I shall study Greek 1 week and Latin another. I began today with Greek and spent about half an hour on it, which is the utmost I shall give to either that or Latin at present. My intention is to resume Herodotus, of which I have already read 3 books, pursue it regularly through, and read alternatively a speech of Demosthenes and a Greek play. As my time is now so much more occupied, I only read the Indian history every other day. November 9th, Thursday. A horrible accident accompanied by fearful loss of life has occurred at Southampton. A rocket amongst the fireworks on the 5th November set fire to an oil and turpentine warehouse on the waterside. Nobody was in it, but a number of respectable tradesmen and others rushed to the spot and attempted to save the property, where a large quantity of turpentine within blew up, burying the poor men under the ruins of the building. It is supposed that as many as 30 suffered this fate. Several have been dug out, mostly dead, but some few still alive. November 11th, Saturday. I find Herodotus, as I can read it quite easily, so very entertaining. It is as easy to me, pretty nearly, as French, only that I have every now and then to look up a word in the dictionary, and when once I take it up, I find it difficult to lay it down again. Demosthenes is much harder work and requires closer attention. November 14th, Thursday. This reading of lives is very laborious and always leaves me thoroughly fatigued. Papa and Mama are both afraid that I'm overtasking my brain again. But what shall I do? It is so delightful to be able to study again, and I have lost so much time to make up for that I really cannot restrain myself. Sometimes I am quite disheartened at the huge mountain of knowledge which I have to climb, and I feel myself like an ant at the foot of the Andes. Still, it is encouraging to see what can be done by exertion and industry, and I am gratified to find myself making a very visible progress every day. I now generally spend the last half hour or 20 minutes before tea in reading Shakespeare, being then so tired with my matter-of-fact studies as to require some relaxation in the way of works of imagination. I am at present engaged with The Tempest. And I think we'll leave it at that today because we're just over the 10-minute mark. So her studies continuing, her reading of Shakespeare continuing, and perhaps she is a little bit over-ambitious in the way she's exerting herself, especially considering her health, considering she says in one entry that she can't even walk. But I guess, when you love knowledge, when you love to study, you love to read, you're going to do what gives you satisfaction and pleasure and makes you happy. Even I see here, to the point of your death. And, it's not likely that her setting down her books would have changed her fate either way. But as I said, we'll leave it at that today.